everyone can hear me and now see my screen. If you can't, just please speak up. So yeah, my name is Travis. I'm a former SU from Spokane, but now I work at GSL on a project called DESI. And that's what I'll be talking about today. It's a little bit interesting of a project because some offices are already using it and some offices maybe have never even heard of it. So I'm going to try to bring everyone up to speed. And, we're going to be releasing a new version here in the next few days. And this is really what this whole demo will be about. But before I begin, I always like to acknowledge all the people who have worked on DESI. It is not just me. There's several people from NCAR. There's people from GSL, from the Weather Service. We got management, and then the VLab Cloud team that does a tremendous amount of work on the server. So it's a team effort, and I just didn't want to pass that over. So just in terms of my talk, it's going to be around 30 minutes. So I have 20 minutes for the demo. I'm going to talk about the future work just briefly at the end, and then hopefully I'll have time for questions. So I think I have 2 slides here before the demo, and the first slide is what is DESI? And if you've never heard of it, it's really just a web-based, cloud-based tool that's used to interrogate ensemble data. You can use it to look at deterministic data, but really it was designed for ensembles. You can do clustering, tons of statistics. You can look at plan view charts, and the plan view chart is there on the right. You can do point view charts, and most recently, you can now do soundings in DESI. And we have contributions from GSL, NCAR, the NWS, and within the NWS, we have WPC, Western Region Headquarters, and numerous WFOs. So there's, if you saw on the previous page, there are individual contributors from WFOs. And if you're ever interested on working on the code, or there's something you want implemented and you want to do it, I would be more than happy to get you set up and running. And you can always edit DESI yourself and then contribute for everybody in the Weather Service. So the next version of DESI is going to be called 3.0. It's a major update from the server side, but it's also functionality. We added a whole new perspective. So we had the plan view, we had the point view, and now we have the sounding view in DESI. So there's a lot of stuff here, and this is what we've been working on since March. And I'm going to go over most of the functionality here. Over here, we just have new fields, a lot of them severe weather fields, and new maps, and of course, some new data sets. So I'm going to jump right in it and talk about DESI. And I'm going to share my other tab, and hopefully you can now see DESI. So this is what the new 3.0 version of DESI is going to look like. A little bit of a refresh here and some changes in the buttons. But really, I'm going to start up here in the top left with the domain of DESI. Right now, with this current version, you got to click and drag this little icon up here in the top left to move your domain. In the next version of DESI, you won't have to do that, the version that will release in 2024. But right now, you got to move your domain and select your location. I will say that, if you like a certain look, let's say you want to be up here in the Northeast, and you wanted a certain base map, let's say I'm going to go with this Nova base map, you can then save that URL and then press reload on your browser. And let me just go ahead and press reload, and you'll see everything will pop up in the same location, same map background, same view. So for those folks that are just new to using DESI, that's one nice trick, is to always save your domains for each and every model. So I only am looking at the href right here, but go through all the domains, the NBM domains, get them all set up how you want, and then bookmark it. And that will save you some time in the future. Okay, so with DESI, we designed with ensembles in mind, right? So right here, I'm looking actually at the href. This is a 10-member ensemble, and we've introduced a new concept called layers in this next version of DESI. So you can see my layer over here, and we're looking at 2-meter temperature. And this layer, you can expand it and collapse it. But what I'm looking at is the mean here. And if I wanted to look at the maximum between all the ensembles, I can just click on the max, or if I wanted to look at the min, I can do that too. But everything within this layer, you can run a whole bunch of statistics on it because it is an ensemble. if I changed my member from the grand ensemble in this sense is just those 10 members. But let's say I just changed it to the her. You see my layer collapses now, and I don't have any statistics that I can perform on this layer. I mean, I can change the opacity, and I can switch it from shaded to contoured, but there's not much that I can do here. I'm going to change it back to the grand ensemble. So whenever you really want to dive into the statistics, keep it on the grand ensemble. And with the whole layer aspect of DESI now, you can actually do multiple layers, and any layer really that you want. So you can go ahead and press this button. So right now it's highlighted on this recycle icon. We call it replace mode, but if I go up to the menu and let me click on precipitable water, the temperature layer disappeared and it was replaced with precipitable water. If I press this add button and then now I go up to temperature, now I get 2 layers. They're both shaded layers. So let me change the temperature to a contour layer, and now I have precipitable water and I have temperature both overlaid on top of each other. And just pro tip, if you want to just temporarily activate this this add mode, you can just press Control on your keyboard. So if you see, if I press in Control, it toggles it on and off. So if I hold Control, go up to my menu, and then let me click on temperature again, you can see I got 2 layers now here on my left-hand side. I'm going to change temperature to contoured. Okay, so that's kind of layers there with DESI. When you switch to contours, you can change them to color or black and white. I'm just going to keep it on shaded here for a second. And now we're going to look at the different statistics that you can do with this one field. So I'm going to change it, and I'm going to go down to spread now. So when I was a forecaster, I often liked looking at the spread within the ensemble. It told me, how much uncertainty there was within it. And as I go through time, you can see that there is quite a bit of spread here. And I can tell you without even looking at the data, but I have looked at it, unfortunately, this is a front, and there's uncertainty within the position of the front. And if I hover over here, you probably can't see my readout. It might be too small to see. But the mean temperature is 37. And if I hover my mouse over here, the mean temperature is 66. And if I hover right over this particular area, my mouse says there's a 2-meter temperature difference of 17 degrees. And we're looking, again, at the spread between the 75th percentile and the 25th percentile. And if you wanted to look at the spread between the maximum value and the minimum value at each pixel, you can do that too. And with this front that was coming through, what are we looking at? October 27th. So this was just a few days ago. The front that ended summer, unfortunately for us. You can see there's large positioning errors here. And that's just a nice way to look at the data using this spread option. Okay, so I'm going to go now to timing. So one of the other statistics that you can do with DESI is figure out when you're going to hit a particular threshold, the time at which it will happen. So I switched things over to timing, and now I'm going to say, I'm going to put my threshold at 40 degrees. And what this essentially does, it goes to the server, it opens up all members of the href. And then it says, did you hit 40 degrees? Did this member hit 40? And it really goes through every member, and it figures out when it happens. And not all members actually hit this threshold. So you can see there's a big area over on this side of the domain where my mouse said threshold not met. So not a single member hit that threshold of less than 40 degrees within my time window. And you can control the time window right here, but it defaults to the extent of the run. And for the href, it's 48 hours. But anyways, I can see that in Omaha here, in about 47 hours from the initialization date, and it says in parentheses Friday at 5 a.m., we will hit that threshold. And if I wanted to see the earliest I would hit that threshold, I can go over and just adjust my statistics. And I can see it's Friday at 5 a.m. And the latest we would actually drop below 40 degrees is Friday at 6 a.m. So there's relatively very little uncertainty between this 10-member ensemble of when we would hit that timing threshold. And again, we're looking at temperature here, but the thing is, you can do this with any variable you want, and you can go up to the menus and you can see there's a ton of different variables up here. And you can just hit this timing button if you wanted just a shortcut to it, and then you would be able to compute your statistics. So that's a little intro on the timing there. And then I'm going to jump to probabilities now. And this was in our previous version, but we've really kind of increased the functionality here under the timing button, or sorry, under the probability button. So I'm going to jump and put this up, let's say 40 degrees. What's the probability we're going to hit less than 40 degrees? Actually, let me change this to precipitation. This is not a very good example. So I'm going to go to 1 hour precipitation, and I'm just going to show you guys the data real quick. This is the ensemble mean. Just remember that we had that front coming through. But let's go to probabilities for precipitation. And now we have a threshold of greater than 0.01 inches in 1 hour. Okay. So the new features that we've added with this latest release is now a time window. So, sometimes I care about, are we going to get, this rain rate of, let's say, an inch or a 100th of an inch in 1 hour over any time over the next, let's say, 48 hours. So you can go ahead and press submit. Now it's going to do this calculation, and it's an accumulated window. So if I go to the very end of my run, I can see that at the end of the run, are we going to hit, 1 hour precip of greater than or equal to 0.01 inches? And most of the places in the domain hit that threshold. And so that's what the window does. And then we have neighborhood probabilities. So this is great for severe weather when you have thunderstorms popping up in different locations and you just want to get a probability over a certain radius. So you can adjust the radius here and then go ahead and press submit. Then it's going back to the server and doing the calculations. And there we go, we have a neighborhood probability. So some people look at this and say, wow, it looks really messy. And almost all the time when you look at neighborhood probabilities, there's Gaussian smoothing going on. And I decided, and tell me if this is a horrible idea and if we want it changed, I decided to put no smoothing in by default when you do the probability radius. And you can adjust the smoothing up here. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust it. And what it does, it uses an IRR or IIR, I forget the acronym, Gaussian filter. And you can adjust the data on the fly and get the smoothing radius at which you want to view the data. I personally like looking at the data unsmoothed, but I do realize that people do like a smoothing radius on some of their data. So you got the neighborhood probabilities, you got the smoothing radius, and again, you can do this for any variable you want. One thing I'd like to note with the href, with this next version of DESI, there is a ton of new convective fields. So if you look under the convective menu, we got everything from shear to updraft velocity to LCLs to the significant tornado parameter. So we tried to beef this up within our next version. All right, and then one more thing I just wanted to add on the smoothing. Certain variables have smoothing by default. So I'm going to go up here and I just click this 2-meter temperature, mean sea level pressure, and wind. And now you can see I got my 3 layers here, right on the left-hand side. For certain variables like mean sea level pressure, this has a smoothing by default. And I looked around at all the weather websites that we have, like Tropical Tidbits and the href viewer, of course. And certain variables like frontogenesis, temperature advection, and mean sea level pressure are normally smoothed by default. So I did that in these cases. But if you wanted to turn the smoothing off on the mean sea level pressure, you certainly can. So you can see I just changed it to 0, but it looks like it's defaulting to 25 kilometers. So certain variables have this smoothing option, but every option or every variable under the probability, you will have this smoothing option too. So that's that. So I'm going to jump over and I'm going to quickly show you the point viewer in DESI. So a lot of times, all I care about is forecasting for one point. You know, it could be a county fair, it could be the Super Bowl, or whatever is going on in your particular area. But I took the 1D viewer code and I put it into DESI, and we're currently trying to enhance it a little bit more. But you can select a station just like you can with the 1D viewer. Let's go to Colorado. And we have different groups here, right? So if you want to look at aviation parameters, the convection parameter or group has been really beefed up with this next release, but it will always default to this default group. And then a lot of times when I was forecasting too, I only cared about a couple variables. You know, if there's a snowstorm, I might only cared about snow and wind or something like that. So this view you can change from the overview to by variable. And here we can select any variable we want. And this new release, I've grouped them, so it's a little less confusing than it was before. But let's go ahead and, I don't know, let's look at wind gusts. And so as I move my mouse from left to right, the histogram updates with the data down below. If you don't like histograms, you can change it to box whiskers. If you don't like box whiskers, you can look at it via plumes. And you can always hover over each of these members over here and highlight where they are. And that yellow line is the grand ensemble mean there. So I'm going to go over and jump over to this new sounding viewer in DESI. So this is what we've been working on. I should really say Jacob Radford has been working on. So a lot of this is his work now. But it has a similar look and feel to the rest of DESI. You know, if you hover over a member, you can see it in the soundings. If you want to turn a member off or on, you can, just like the 1D viewer. And you can go forwards and backwards in time. This parcel trace is up here. If you don't like it, you can turn it on or off. I'm hoping that by the release, we will have a wet bulb parcel trace, or just a wet bulb trace. But no promises, but we're working on it. And this graph style, right now we only have plumes, but we want to expand that to like an envelope and whisker plots. But that's all we have for right now. And if I wish to change over to the LREF, and this is our global ensemble 100-member data set, this graph style does have plumes with all the members. So you just have to make sure you change that when you're looking at the LREF. So by default, it will only show you the 3 ensembles. But let me just switch back to the href real quick. And you can see as I go through time, the table statistics update below. So let me find a location that actually has some CAPE. Okay, so we have some CAPE here at this location. And these table statistics, if they're all interactive. And we wanted to make it that way because we really wanted to build a probabilistic tool. So if I click on CAPE, you're going to get this new graph here, and it shows you the ensemble min, the 25th, the 50th, the 75th, and the ensemble max. And that's pretty cool. And as you update through time, you can kind of see how things update. So there's very little CAPE in this example. But let me click on like the LFC or the most unstable LFC, and you can click on all these variables and really understand the uncertainty with them. And so this is our whole new perspective, our sounding perspective in DESI. So very quickly, I have 2 more minutes on this demo. So I wanted to show you videos in DESI. So this is going to be released within the next version of DESI, but let's say you wanted to communicate, I don't know, let's just do 1 hour precipitation. And you wanted to make a video of this. So you actually have this video icon up here in DESI now. And when it pops up, you get these controls that you can move around, and you can select the resolution of your video. So defaults to 720, but you can change it to 1080p. And one thing I want to show you, when it goes to 1080p, it has to render all those pixels, that 1080 by 1920. So it goes off my screen. But that's okay. That's the expected behavior. That's what we have to do to render it at the 1080p resolution. But let's say you make your headline, you just type it in, heavy rain, even though there's not heavy rain in this example. And if you want to include bullet points, you can turn them on here. So you can do point A, point B, point C, you know, whatever you want to write. And then you capture your video. So the way you would do that, you press this capture button. So let's say I want my first frame to be this. And then I want to zoom in, and I'm going to advance through time, and then I'm going to click this button. So that's going to be the last frame of my video. So you can go ahead and press the preview button, and this is what your video is going to look like, and this is what it's going to generate in DESI. And when you press generate, it renders in about the same amount of time, but it just kind of gives you an example of what you're looking at. And one more thing I wanted to point out is under the cities, oftentimes we want a readout here. So you can turn the readout on or off, depending on what's appropriate for your case. But I'm going to jump back over to my slides, and I can show you, this is just a video I made. It's a snow video. And let's say you wanted to tweet this out or something, you can now generate the videos. It's all done locally on your computer, and this is what you get. You can also make images the same exact way. So maybe it's more appropriate to send this out as an image rather than a video, but you kind of get the point here with the weather scenes of DESI. And with the next version of DESI, version 3.1, so this is the version that we're going to release in 2024. So I thought I would take a few minutes, show you what we're working on, because ultimately, I don't want to go down the wrong path. This is a tool for everybody on this call. And if we don't like what we're working on, you really do need to let us know so we can kind of change it up. But this is what the Weather Service has me working on right now. So for the 2024 release, we do plan on enhancing the DSS graphics in DESI. So you just saw a preview or a little taste of what's going to be in the 3.0 release, which will come out this month. But in the 2024 release, we'll be adding these NWS Boise graphics. So this was made by Corey Anderson, and these NWS Tucson graphics. These will all be able to be generated within the DESI platform. And if there's more graphics that need to be added, we can certainly do that too. Another thing that we'll be working on, and I told you that domain selection in DESI, so let me just pop back into DESI real quick. This domain selection here in the top left, that will be going away because in 2024, we'll have adaptive resolution. So the current DESI is this left-hand side where you got to pick your domain, and you kind of got to move it around to different locations. But once we get done with the next release, as you move your domain, the data will update. If you want to zoom out and view the whole CONUS, you certainly can with the data, but it's going to be at a lower resolution. So you zoom in to your CWA, the NBM will be at the native resolution, 2.5 kilometers. If you zoom out and view the NBM of the whole CONUS, the data will be somewhere between 20 and 30 kilometer resolution. So you won't be picking your domain anymore, and the resolution will be adaptive. And that's how we're able to get these whole CONUS views of the data set. So that's coming. And then last but not least, so I made this video with the video generator that you just saw. But this is my pet project, is 3D terrain in DESI. So a lot of times in Western region, we use Google Earth tons for issuing spots. Just you all know better than I how much the terrain influences the wind. And I was always getting frustrated with how difficult it was to look at the weather data and then looking at Google Earth and the weather data and trying to line things up. So the thought was, why not just put Google Earth into DESI? So we got the 3D terrain in DESI. This is DESI right here that you're looking at. This is the particle flow, which I forgot to show you that feature that will be coming out in 3.0. But Corey Anderson made these particle flows. That will be coming out in the next version of DESI. And this 3D terrain, we plan on releasing it in 2024. So I feel bad that I did not show the particle flow because it's such a cool feature in DESI. I just wanted to show you real quickly. So you have your layers. Here's the wind direction layer. If I click on this, you can change the barbs to particle flow. If you don't like them black, you can change them to white. You can increase the number of particles, and you can increase the speed of the particles. And of course, as you move through time, the particle direction does update. So that was the particle flow that I forgot to show. All right, so moving on to our timeline. So DESI 3.0, that's everything that you just saw in the demo. That will be available to all offices, and I put sometime this month because the date keeps slipping. So it was supposed to be after the VLab talk, but sometime this month, I hope everyone will have it in their hands. And then the 3.1 release, that comes with the new graphics, the IDSS graphics. It comes with the adaptive resolution and 3D terrain. That will be released sometime in spring of 2024. So that is all I have, and I just thank you guys for the invite, and I appreciate the time. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Travis. Wow, a plethora of really cool graphics that you've created there. So we have had some questions come in. First up, John Stepcati asks, will there be an archive kept for case reviews and training?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as a former SU, man, I want that so bad. So the biggest cost right now on the DESI platform is storage, and our compute costs are about an order of magnitude less. So with that in mind, if we increase the storage of DESI and therefore the archive, our costs would balloon dramatically. But I will say we're looking into cheaper storage options that, again, are about an order of magnitude less, but it would be slower. So let's say you wanted to look at a case from 3 months ago, you would be able to, but DESI would be slower. So it's something we're looking into, but it all comes down to cost at the end of the day.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Then we just have some questions, I guess, with regards to which versions are going to be available to which offices. So I know you said DESI 3.0 will be available to all offices, but I guess some clarification on if the data set's just limited to href and NBM, or do we have a combined ensemble with GFS, the Euro, and the CMC ensemble members?
Yeah, so every office will have the exact same DESI with the exact same data set. So the data sets will be the href. It will be that, what I call the LREF, the low resolution ensemble with the European, the GEFs, and the Canadian. You'll have NBM members for limited variables, and there will be 100 members for P6, P24, temperature, wind speed, wind gust, max wind speed, max wind gust. So you'll be able to look at 100 members for that. And I don't think I'm forgetting any other data sets. Oh, and of course the NBM itself. So you'll have that. So.
All right, thank you. And then one last question. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the globe or 3D viewpoint for DESI? And just the reason for the offset viewpoint versus a typical top-down view.
Yeah, so I think hopefully I'm answering this question correctly. So the globe view in DESI, it's only available when you're under these simple base maps. So if I go under simple, you'll see this 3D button pop up. And if I click it, that's when I get the globe. So I really, really want the globe view for like the Esri base maps. But I just looked this morning, it's not supported yet. But the day it is supported, I will add the globe view for the regular base maps.